All right, welcome back. I know it's been a while. I never tackled chapter 12 with you. Inking, the art of inking. Thanks for patiently waiting. We're at a time where we need to have more content on YouTube, and here I am making my contribution. Kind of finishing off the how to draw comics the Marvel way. I pretty much hit most of it except some of the beginning and a little bit of going in detail, a little bit objects and things like that. But it's three-dimensional objects isn't as big of a deal as drawing anatomy and composing shots. But I can always go back to it, maybe as a bonus video. The art of inking. No matter how beautifully a page may be drawn in pencil, it cannot be printed in a comic book unless black India ink is applied to the original pencil drawing. That means someone has to trace over the initial penciled artwork with either a paintbrush or drawing pen, transforming each illustration into a carefully inked final project. And I'm not going to keep reading the rest because it's not visually interesting to you guys, but it kind of goes on. The inker is an artist unto himself or herself. No chauvinist we. A gifted inker can make mediocre penciling look great, and mediocre inker can make a great penciler look dull. So goes into everything, the different kind of strokes you can use. Now, this is kind of like a device they have for, kind of making the ink a little bit more steady, kind of like more of a pen. The whole thing, I think, they pretty much touch on is brushing. They want you to use an ink brush, which is fine. I've done that, but there is a learning curve with it. It takes practice. For the finer lines, you use like a pen, ink pencil, or ink pen, using India ink. I used to do all that. I used to do, my first, actually all three of my Rage comics, I've done India ink. And what I found is that it's fine. I love the look. It's kind of like, to me, ink markers are like video, as it's like in movies, in filmmaking, you have video now instead of film. Well, to me, inks are kind of like film, and markers are kind of like video. It's just kind of, they're a little bit different, but really, if you're an indie guy, and this is my thoughts on this, you're not getting paid the big bucks. You're not sitting in the studio at Marvel doing this unless you really want to sit down and painstakingly ink. It'll look great, but how much time is it going to take? Are you getting paid for all that time? Do you want to get a message out more important than the amount of how great the pages look? Because in my experience, you want to knock out as many books as you can, because you can take years on just a book, 1 to 2 to 3 books, depending on how your work schedule is. And markers are a lot quicker. You can get a pretty dang good line. I don't think you can get as sharp of a line with markers. There's just something about, using the nub, the India ink, brush and nub and all that. And here they have the different kind of strokes here. What are good, what's good, what's bad about them. I'm not going to go into that so much. I kind of want to show you more than tell right now, and I'm kind of doing a lot of telling. This is pretty cool. This talks about how you don't want too many lines going on. Here's an example. Look at that. That's a lot. There's a lot of unneeded lines. Parallel lines there, almost cross-hatching. Maybe here and there, but not as much. Compared to that, things pop out a little bit more. It's not so busy, although there's still a lot, but that's way better than that. It's just kind of intuitive. And here's another example. Now look at that. That's too light. That's not enough contrast there. It's just your eyes just seeing a lot of, like, it's getting lost in all these single lines. You want some weight. You want the light source to be coming from a certain direction. Really, it's kind of like black and white, filmmaking in a way, because in filmmaking you got to have a light source come from somewhere. I think in this light source is coming from probably back here, and it's shining over there, and there's the shadow right there. And think about like a sun. You always have the sun glaring down and casting shadows, Well, here's a shadow right here. Maybe the light's coming from this direction, and then there's another light source going over there. It's probably coming from over here because the shadow's going that way, I think. Those are things to think about. Here's another example. Light source coming from over here, shining up. And here they darken around his head because they want to frame the shot. So your eyes are being followed to this composition, to this the blackness there. And here it's for dramatic effect, one light source from over there. And black around the eyes gives it a seriousness. A lot of times you want to use a light source as a certain kind of feel. You can check out some old film books, lighting film books too, and that'll help you a lot. And you're talking about Dracula. And here, this is awesome. How it's casting this big shadow here, and he's popping out. Here's a composition. He's popping out from the background. That extremeness. My mind instantly went to Indiana Jones. There's a scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where it takes place near the beginning of the movie where Marion opens the door opens, and you see Indiana Jones's shadow against the wall, and Marion's like right here, and she turns to see him. So you watch great movies, black and white movies, Citizen Kane, The Third Man, awesome examples of lighting, black and white. And this kind of goes into it a bit more dark, and this is the composition of dark and light. And just goes into it more detail. I'm kind of gonna go into. I'm gonna show you an example. I thought this was cool. Dracula. There's a lot more darkness. It's more melodramatic. The light source is from like over here, and so casting the shadow right there on the jacket. If it were me, this is almost too. It's still too light because it's Dracula, the subject. It's almost like when you expose too much light, it takes out kind of the threat or the supernatural scariness of him, the power of him, when you have that much light still. So I would probably darken out some of these details, because you don't want such clarity necessarily. But it is a Marvel comic book, and I think that's the point they're trying to make. So there's some lightness to it because it's a superhero thing, but still, you want that supernatural, especially if it's Dracula, scariness coming out and not being so lit. Because especially when his power isn't really that strong when there's some light around. And here's an example of Spider-Man. Light source coming from over here, hitting that building. Again, not too many lines. It's just enough to make things pop from there to the foreground. This is the end. It kind of tells you, hey, you have to love doing comics to be good at them, and you got to practice drawing every day. That's why I always empathize in my drawing course, 10-second cartooning. Take a pad wherever you go. 10 seconds a day is all it takes. Commit yourself to it for at least a month, and watch how much your skill's going to increase. It's a good habit to do. And basically, it's not easy, kids. It's not. And it's a rare breed that is a comic book artist. comic book illustrator. Let me see what else it says. Yeah, draw anyone, anything. Draw your friends. I always say draw your dogs, your pets. The more you draw, the better you're going to be. It says, become as facile with a pencil, pen, or brush as you are with a knife and fork. I love that. That's a good metaphor. So let me show you, enough of the talking, let me show you some of the strokes they're talking about here. Now, Faber-Castell, this is like a lot more of a fine artist pen. They have M for medium, but I don't think it's that. It's just what I use for detail. And if you look, I'll bring this in a little bit more. See, such a fine line, and you can use the different edges of that to create a finer line. So it's not so straight on. You can make it kind of sketchy too. And you don't have to worry about ink bleeding. And I think that's a good line. I mean, it's inked. And your average reader that's going to read your comic isn't going to be so hung up over, oh my gosh, you used markers to ink, didn't you? It's like you're more worried about, do I understand what's happening? Do I like this character? Does this composition, does this work for me? Am I, is this a cool thing that's happening here? Is it, how engaged with the story am I, and what do I care about these people? And if like real hardcore artists are going to be like, you used marker, didn't you? And that's going to be like, maybe you get one person at a convention, maybe two, and who knows if they'll even talk a bunch of crap about you for using the markers. I'm not going to worry about that. I still kind of like to use the India ink once in a while. That's just me, but I know how time consuming that is. It's already time consuming making comics and all that. Why, again, you only have so much time in life, especially if you're not doing this as a full-time job. Why not use that time to get more story out, more comics done, instead of worrying about how well they are inked? Again, worry about that when you're getting paid by Marvel or DC or any other comic book company. That's just my take on it, though. It's my opinion. So that's a pretty good line. That's a pretty decent line. And you can always make it thicker by doing a few more strokes right there. Not bad, Faber-Castell. Not bad. Let me show you. Again, at the not the dollar store, but Five Below, $5 store. A set of 4 for $3. Unbelievable. And these are I bought these about 6 months ago, and they're still awesome. Same thing. Show you. Just about the same quality as Faber-Castell. It's hard to notice if it's any different. It really is. Or the difference is so small. Okay, so there's an example there. And I think I might have shown this in a previous video. I'm going to wrap this up in about a minute. This is the brush that came in the set of 4. This says brush on it. So if I want to get more and a thicker line, basically a brush. What the book was talking about, it wants you to use the brush for a lot of your lines. You have a thicker, it gives the lines more character. There you go. I mean, so honestly, there's no excuses anymore to get caught up and saying, well, I just couldn't figure out the inking, because the inking is pretty much used as a pencil in this case, and you have to be as good with your inks as you are with your pencil, like a fork and a knife. Thank you for watching all these how to draw comics the Marvel way videos. I'm looking at doing another series of videos on another subject, maybe in the Joe Kubert book I have. If you have any suggestions about what you want me to cover as the next group of videos, let me know. Drop me a comment here. And yeah. Yeah, so look, I'm not going to tell you to do anything at the end of these videos. You either like these videos or you don't. Okay, so I'm not going to be condescending to you. Okay, but I appreciate you watching. And yeah, I'll see you next video, whatever that's going to be. Hang tight, keep drawing, keep your head up, stay healthy. Healthy state of mind, healthy body.